Alright, so today I'm back with yet another chapter review, and today we will go over chapter 281, which is going to be something really special, as we will get a whole lecture by Ego about everything from birth to DNA and all the way to genetics, which can help us understand a lot more about Isagi's situation. However, we will also learn that a KAISER and Isagi link-up might be a lot closer than we actually think, but I don't want to say too much, so you will just have to sit back and watch to find out what happens. Anyway, before jumping into it, please leave a like and a comment as well as join the Discord server down in the comments. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into it. So for chapter 281, also called the Formula of Evolution, we start off with seeing some rather interesting characters, but we also have Ego, who's going to give us a lecture on DNA. He says that as a general rule, all organisms are born after receiving half of their mother and father's genes. However, there are occasionally copy errors, and a child is born with a trait that neither of its parents possesses, for example, extreme smallness, height, speed, or sensitivity of feeling. In most cases, that child is singled out for being different or cannot compete with others, and so is culled out without passing on their genes. However, in very rare instances, that trait happens to be advantageously susceptible to their environment. That gene proliferates through natural selection, and the trait that was once a mutation becomes a new standard for the species. After that, these genetic cycles repeat over and over again until the original species has become a totally different creature. We then see Ego, who looks down at his hand and says that this is evolution. Henri, who is standing right by Ego, is astonished by all of this, as she even admitted that she had no idea. She then says that it's basically how Pichu turns into Pikachu, right? Ego tones then shifts as he says that foolish adults who stop studying will get culled out by natural selection. Henri immediately gets really embarrassed by this, as she starts to look down to the ground and says that she will make sure to do better. However, after that she looks up and gets a serious expression, as she asks Ego, what connection does evolution have to soccer? After that we get a full image of Ego's insane setup, really showing us how much of a gamer he is, as he tells Henri that this is just his personal theory about talent. But the various evolutions human society undergoes are essentially the same as this. He further goes on and explains that humans born with traits that others lack have a hard time being understood and live difficult lives, but that might be a gene that will cause humanity to evolve. Those areas of differentiation produce unique expressions of body and mind, and there are some people who can cast those expressions out into the world and admit them. There are some revolutionary expressions which are suitable for the era and circumstances, and these can change the world standards. The ones with those seeds are what Ego calls geniuses, he says with an intense and determined facial expression. However, we are far from over with Ego's lecture as he continues and says that to present society, that innovation is never something the genius can achieve on their own. Someone needs to discover the seed, comprehend its worth and be able to communicate it to the world. By boosting its feasibility and reproducibility, they turn it into a new world standard. The ones who do that are called talented learners. Henri, who's finally allowed to speak, says that she finally understands. She says that the talent mutations that geniuses have eventually become common, and that it's the same as the genetic evolution that Ego explained earlier. Ego says that Henri is spot on, and says that he thinks that it's how human culture has continued to evolve, and the same could be said about soccer. The mutant geniuses with abnormal physical abilities and incredible plays become singularity points, and by analyzing the geniuses and forming new tactics or using data to counter them, the talented learners develop players using a new kind of logic, which is just how soccer has continued to evolve. Henri's eyes suddenly light up as she says that it's the formula for evolution, and then we get right back to Ego, who gives off an intense and wild feeling as he looks at his screen and tells Isagi to open his eyes and tells him that the world doesn't just revolve around geniuses, as geniuses and talented learners share the stage, and talented learners like Isagi himself have their own path to becoming the world's best. And after that, we finally get into the meat of this chapter, which is of course the gameplay, as the match restarts and the rat passes the ball right over to Noah, who traps it easily. We then get a small panel of Isagi's eyes, which are burning up with determination, as he says that there's no way that he himself can defeat a genius. As he is running behind Noah and Rin, he thinks about the absurd plays that geniuses make, and says that they are impossible for him to try to pull off on the spot, as he can't even begin to imagine it. But then something clicks, as he thinks that he actually might have always fought as a talented learner. He thinks back to the time he used Baru's blind spot against him, also his two-gun volley direct shot, and not to mention his luck goal in the U20 match. He thinks about all of this, as he says that he has analyzed somebody's talent, copied it, and then made his own arrangements based on predictions, thinking that he has stolen from everyone else and still barely scraped by. His facial expression looks furious as he grinds his teeth while thinking that he doesn't have enough originality to create something from zero, saying that he is a genuine second-rate talented learner. After that, we see Rin, who tries to get the ball away from Noah, but Noah just in time sends it over to KAISER, who alongside Noah does some passes back and forth with KAISER. Isagi then thinks that this game just revolves around the geniuses and that the world is waiting for another super goal. Isagi is starting to look a bit lost and afraid as he thinks that nobody's going to pass to a second-rate player like himself and that he needs to steal it for himself. But just as he was in his mind, he noticed something to his right. It was Loki who was coming with his godly speed. Isagi was shocked, as even though he just seen Loki by his side, he was now all the way up on the field thanks to his insane speed. And because of that, Isagi realizes that this is on a whole other level. He looks lost as he looks at Loki while saying that he doesn't have a chance in hell. Loki manages to actually catch up to a pass sent by KAISER to Noah, which means that PXG has the ball and is going all out for an attack. But we aren't done with Isagi just yet. While that happened, he looked at Loki closely and thought that between him and the geniuses lies an unsurpassable genetic wall of talent. It looks like time stops for Isagi as he realizes it, and he looks crushed to the max as he says that God is so unfair. However, he wasn't all alone in this thought. As he hears someone to his right, he looks over and sees KAISER, who's screaming his heart out. KAISER asks how unfair he can be and calls the gods shitty while having a super annoyed facial expression as Loki stole his pass. But this changes things as Isagi hears it, but to a start, he is so confused by KAISER's words. He looks over at KAISER and wonders why KAISER would be saying such a thing, as it was exactly what Isagi was thinking. He says that it's bullshit and that KAISER is a genius like them, asking him in his mind if he isn't. He says that, unlike Isagi, KAISER is actually able to hold his own against the other geniuses. But then, as Isagi's puzzle pieces start to spin like crazy, something clicks for him as he finally figures it out. He looks intensely at KAISER and asks if it could be true that he is at the same level as Isagi, and if KAISER is also a talented learner just like Isagi. To end it off, we see this amazing panel with Isagi's puzzle pieces floating right by KAISER and some of his iconic moments on them. Alright, so this was a hell of a chapter, so let's go over it right away. Now I'm not gonna lie, but Ego was talking so much, so I just got confused by most of it. But I feel like the most important thing to cover from it is that Ego told Isagi to open his eyes, as the world does not just revolve around geniuses. Now in the last chapter, Isagi was pretty down and crushed as he thought that he couldn't evolve any further as he wasn't labeled a genius. However, in the next panel, Ego confirmed that it's not the case, as he said that talented learners like Isagi himself have their own path to becoming the world's best, which means that Isagi is still in the picture and still has a shot at becoming the world's best, which he most likely will. But he was good to have it confirmed that only because you aren't necessarily a genius, you still have a chance. Now I'm gonna be pretty boring, but there isn't that much that I want to highlight in this chapter, as it was pretty straightforward. However, I still want to quickly talk about KAISER and Isagi, as this kind of tells us that they will need each other for the last goal, which is something that a lot of people doesn't want, which I think is ridiculous. Both of them are currently at the level of talented learners, and therefore needs each other's help to grow and to actually win this game. And in my opinion, a KAISER and Isagi link-up would be so incredibly dope, so I'm all for it. However, there's only one thing that I want right now, and that's to hear what you are thinking about a possible KAISER and Isagi link-up, and if you would be a fan of it or not. And if you like Blue Lock and videos like this, then I would highly suggest you subscribe to this channel, and while you are at it, leave a comment and a like, as it helps out with the algorithm a ton. And if you are curious to see another video of mine, then please watch the video that will be popping up on the screen now. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.